this happens, your brain feels slightly heavy, but pleasantly heavy, and there's a tingling sensation right on the top of your head. That is said to be the sign that the pliancy is about to come. The example they give, I don't think you will be familiar with. Maybe some of you will be familiar with it. Some of you, I'm looking at you right now. The feeling of a warm hand after you shaved your head. Right? After you shaved your head or when you're bald, so I know what that feels like, when I shave my head once a month or whatever, when it's all gone, and I place my hand and it's like this coolness of this kind of hot head. That's this kind of this tingling, they say. So this is for monks and nuns, actually, the example. Or for those of us, some of us with short hair. Oh, you too. Anyway.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so the pliancy will be attained. Then, after that sign that I just described, then there is already a coarser form. Your mind becomes a little bit more pliant than before. A coarser form of special pliancy. So it's a coarser form. That gives rise, the mental is already a little bit more pliant. That gives rise to the physical also being a little bit more pliant. The body becomes also more flexible than before. And then an incredible physical bliss arises. Why? Because this energy moves through the body now. A certain energy moves through the body. And so that gives this incredible physical bliss. Total happiness, physical well-being of the body. It's totally blissful. That gives rise to an incredible mental bliss. Right? You physically feel so light and so blissful and so pleasant. Incredible mental bliss. And then that wears off. It wears off a little bit. It steadies. And then you have the special mental and physical pliancy. That's what you're looking for. After the bliss wears off a little bit, now you've developed the special physical and mental pliancy. And that means you have karma abiding. Okay? So you had the omen, you had the sign that gave rise, that you knew that, okay, pliancy is about to rise. You don't have to do anything. You just keep on meditating. Just keep on the object. Then you have the coarse mental pliancy. That gives rise to the coarse physical pliancy. That gives rise to a physical bliss. That gives rise to a mental bliss. It comes down, and there's your karma abiding. And that goes very quick. So this is meditators explaining, going through these stages. They shared their experiences, and they said, well, this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened. And then, steady, you have this great pliancy, great physical and mental pliancy. Now you have karma abiding. Done? Yes, 25 minutes before 9. Now, just to have, if you have questions, of course, we have some time for question and answers. I know it's really dry. I mean, it's like, ugh. I mean, if you write notes, maybe it helps a little bit, like if you can follow a little bit from it. But basically, it's just these stages. However, if you learn them a little bit and you know them by heart, it makes perfect sense. It really makes perfect sense how you go from one to the next, from one to the next. And of course, even better, you practice this. You actually practice this. That would be the best. Still, it's good to learn about them, having understanding of laxity, excitement, etc. So you recognize them. You recognize the right kind of states. You know how to apply the antidotes. So, in that sense, it makes perfect sense. You're ready to actually. You don't need to always ask your teacher, but you can actually learn yourself to go through the different antidotes, etc. And the question that may arise is, well, how long does karma abiding last? Can you lose it? Oh, yes, you can. Yes, you can lose it, absolutely. You can lose it the next day, but get it, of course, quickly back. Some obstructions could arise, some obstructions in your mind. If you've just newly attained it, you could theoretically lose it the next day, but then you just very quickly go through it again and you're very quickly back at it. But it could also, if these mental obscurations don't arise, you could have it 50 years after, without ever meditating again. Without ever kind of retain it, trying to maintain it, you could also be able to keep it. So that's basically, that completes this, and there's so many more details. But I thought, no way, you get too confused if I give you all the details. With regard to excitement, there's also, there's coarser, subtler, and very subtle, just as with laxity. But it's not mentioned in those 9 stages as much as laxity, like the 3 levels are mentioned, coarse, subtle, and very subtle, not to the same degree. And it makes sense, the coarse excitement is just you're not able to keep the object. Okay, that's in the beginning, the first 3 stages is coarse excitement. And then subtle, slightly subtler, not very subtle, but subtle excitement is when you can keep the object, but you mainly have discursive thoughts. So mainly there are these thoughts, but somehow at the side you can keep the object, right? So one part of the mind keeps the object, but you keep having disruptive thoughts. Subtle excitement is like when you really mainly focus on the object and you have subtle disruptive thoughts. So that would be like when you have a frozen lake and water rushing underneath the surface, right? It's still, there's still some, but mainly it's frozen. So there are these forms of excitement. And there are lots of details on exactly what, and I didn't want to go into this. I thought it's not worth it. You'd be so confused. I can already tell you, if I talk about other subjects, your faces are usually much more attentive. I know, I can check everyone's face, and I can see over 2 hours how... No, it's just, it's hard. It's just a list of lots of things. So obviously it's difficult. Never mind. It's still important, so therefore we had to go through this today. Maybe good for your calm abiding, as in like staying focused and concentrated. All right. Anyway, basically that completes this. And no. Questions?
No.
Okay, all right.
Just.
Oh, I thought you were closing it. Yes, please. Yes,
I want to ask, how can one deal with the feeling that you can concentrate on an object, but you still have like 3 different minds? You got a lot of thoughts going parallel.
But actually, to think that you have 3 different minds going parallel, that's an illusion. You actually don't have 3, but they go so quickly, one after the other, right? You think of this, you think of that, you think of this, like a movie. It feels like it's like one continuation, but they're actually just frames. So therefore, so there's a difference whether you use that example or lights blinking very quickly, and it seems that it happens actually at the same time, but it doesn't. So it's 3 different minds arising. But how do you deal with it? Well, exertion, making an effort, right? But also the stronger you wish to be focused, the more you understand the qualities of calm abiding. It's like look, for instance, when you go jogging. You kind of like, your wife tells you go jogging, and so you do it, but you don't really feel like it, and you have pain. But if that's not, like just someone telling you to do it, if that's not the case, if you feel like these are the qualities of jogging, this is the result, this is what, wow, and you're so into jogging, so you're so enthusiastic. First you have faith in the qualities, right? Conviction in the qualities. Second, you have what? You have the wish to attain those qualities. And then you make an effort. There's an effort, there's joyous effort. Okay, so these arise. So doing that, then no matter what hardship, however tired you are, you jump up from your bed, right? It's totally like an everyday experience. If we like doing something so much, if we see the benefits of that, there's nothing that can stop us, no matter how difficult it seems initially. So this is what to do, to learn more about it, to see the benefits and how many, especially when you're interested in Dharma practice and meditating, but also in day-to-day life. I mean, come on. It's so helpful in whatever you do if you have more focus, more concentration. So, and what else it does, even without concentration, but it gives you some space in the mind. So when the stress arises, you don't get drawn into it. You still breathe, you stay calm, and then the momentum is lost and everyone is stressed out and you're not. So just that is a huge, so that keeps you from doing it. It keeps you from doing it, and it kind of dampens down all these thoughts, because that's attachment to this, that, and the other. But if the attachment is counteracted by like, you want to just do that, maybe even replace it with attachment for calm abiding, okay? Then you'll be less distracted in that moment. So that's better than to have attachment towards, in that moment, just make sure that you let go of that at some point. But in the meantime, if the attachment towards what's tomorrow, what's yesterday, of course thoughts arise all the time. Attachment for a person, so you need to reduce them first. Okay? So the first three, as I had explained, plus work with whatever attachment is stronger that makes you think of things all the time. And there are other antidotes, which means you need to start with analytical meditation before you can start thinking of serious calm abiding. Because if you remember in the very beginning, I said, keep the busyness, keep moral ethics, control the afflictions. If you have very strong if any of those are very strong, first you need to apply the antidotes. But that doesn't mean you cannot do some concentrative meditation, but focus more on the analytical part. Good question. Yeah, please.
Do you have any guidelines about the duration of the practice on different levels?
The duration of the practice? Well, I would suggest start with a minute.
Yeah. How do you get from a minute to 4 hours?
Okay. Well, for that, those 4 hours, I said like 6. I said 6 months before.
Yeah.
6 months. I said 6 months before, but 6 months means like packing up. 6 months of your job. Seriously going into an area like totally isolated, but that doesn't mean we can do it in 6 months because all the preparatory work needs to be there. If our afflictions are too strong, if ethical conduct is not strong enough. So first to learn, of course, about calm abiding, seeing what I need to do as a preparation for calm abiding, and then once you fully dedicate yourself, so to get those 4 hours, then you need to do really take time off. But in the meantime,
it's just in lesson 7 in my course, way to lesson 20, so we sit in.
But those 4 hours, I mean, even you don't need to aim for 4 hours right now. I mean, anything you can do is great. So 10 minutes or whatever, I mean, that's already a huge improvement.
יש מיקרופון, אם אתם רוצים לדבר.
you want the microphone.
תביאו רק את המיקרופון. אלא אם אתה מדבר חזק. כי אנחנו פשוט מקליטים את זה, אז תפתח אותו, תן לו כזה שליק למעלה, שליק.
Do you hear? Okay. Well, thank you very much. I will try to be clear. It's not.
A little bit away.
Okay. There's a stage, talking from experience, there are stages during meditation which you talked about clarity and mindfulness and going away and coming back and all these terms, and it looks like these are not stages, at least in my experience, but they are objects. Mm-hmm. So at the same time, experiencing the clarity, the mindfulness, the mind going away but keep coming back, and having this sense of seeing these different objects all together, and from that, from time to time, getting to the point that you describe of physical lightness, but at the same time, sometimes being excited by this sense and seeing the mind being so happy. To feel that way, that it gives a mixed, I'd say, feeling about the place, whether it's really lightness and detachment or whatsoever, but there's still this excitement going on.
I don't think, well, first of all, I'm not sure what you mean with these stages as described are actually objects. Of course, they can also be objects of another mind. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Objects not in the sense, for instance, of the object of breathing, just things that are there.
Things that are there. I would agree that there are things that are there, because there's states of mind. They're here described as, you mean like the clarity and so forth. So the clarity, the intensity, the stability. Oh yeah, they're there. They're characteristics of that mind. They're kind of attributes of the mind in that moment. As like, for instance, even like without concentration, when you have a, whoops, is that me? Even when you have just an ordinary mind, some minds are more intense. If I'm angry, it can be very intense. But then also when meditating on love, there can be very intense love, or more clarity, etc. So yeah, there are definitely attributes of the mind, and the mind has a certain degree of them already. There's already a certain degree of intensity, but sometimes it's not strong enough to hold the object, for instance. And then what you described, the sense of bliss, that is, initially there's also a level of bliss. I mean, I think we go through stages. Sometimes it's just the mind becomes a little bit more pliant, etc. I think here they're talking about this special pliancy, a special kind of bliss, therefore, which is hard to describe because unless we have an experience of it. But you may already go through a blissful, like, for instance, when you're in meditation and there's a pain, there's a blockage, and then suddenly it releases itself, and you're like, whoa, and the body feels lighter, etc. So you can have coarser forms of that, even when you practice the way you describe. So of course you could already have reached 4 hours. I don't know how many hours you can focus. Then of course you're talking of the real deal. But if you have not yet reached the level of being able to focus on 4 hours, then you would experience a similitude, something similar to that bliss, except it's not the same strength. Would that make sense? Okay, great.
And attachment to it.
Yes, okay, of course, attachment is there too, that's the problem. That's why calm abiding does not reduce attachment as such. Well, it can reduce a coarser form, but it doesn't totally get rid of it, which is why it's so dangerous that we get attached to now this, because it makes us feel good and blissful and light and etc. But then to know, okay, this is just a tool, I have more work to do. Okay, great. There's someone right here, can you pass?
Thank you. I can manage.
You can manage?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, alright, then you can just hold it there.
I wanted to ask about, you described the difference between subjective clarity and clarity.
Yes.
And I was wondering first, how do you know where you are if you haven't experienced that before? Like, how do you know now I'm in subjective clarity, or now I just passed to clarity? And the follow-up question is, how do you do that while still keeping your focus on the object? Like, am I subjective clarity? Am I not the object? Like, how does it actually happen?
Okay, so I mean, of course, you can arise from the meditation and check then, in terms of memory. Okay, so like I can do meditation on love, for instance, and then when I arise from that, I check, what was the quality of my meditation like? So that would be one option. And of course, it's just a part of the process. You may not be able to identify it correctly in the beginning. That is hard. It's just all part of the process of knowing where you're at. But you don't always check anyway. It's more about doing it, right? It's like sometimes the checking can be an obstacle. You just keep doing it, and then at some point you rise from that and you realize, in comparison to last month, my clarity has, right? And you remember the intensity of your meditation, especially when you're in this situation. Shamatha has side effects, positive side effects. One is your memory gets better. We have much better memory. And so it's much easier to, what was it? Because there's nothing else happening in my life. I'm doing just shamatha. That's the whole purpose, keeping everything out. So no internet, no cell phone, no relatives, no Hanukkah. It's just no sufganya, nothing. Anyway, no, I'm kidding. But the point is, like, you're just doing that, and so you can compare it to other situations and improve from there. And yes, it's difficult. When do you apply the antidote? That's all part of the process. For instance, what is the kind of mind? I mean, first, when we just meditate on anger, etc., is this real anger now? What is this anger? Is this love or is this attachment? We have a hard time differentiating initially. Do I love the other person right now, or am I just attached? Okay? So in that moment, when I said such and such to him or to her, was it really the wish for that person to be happy? Was that love? Or was it like, I want something back because I'm really nice to you right now. That's also in that moment to be able to differentiate between the two. It's the whole challenge. But you learn. It's really interesting when you start looking at your own mind. First it's just a blur. Just a blur, like what? Mind? My own mind? Where's that? And then as you keep training that, then, oh, I can differentiate between not being angry and being angry. And then you look, oh, even within being angry, there was the first moment, the second. And before being angry, first there was that, and then there was that, and then there was that, and then you can actually trace it back. So the more you look, the more familiar you become with your own mind, and the more you can say, oh, this is dullness. Oh no, this was such and such. It's just a matter of looking again and again. So in the in-between period, as you may have heard, a retreat, one of the most important periods is also the in-between period. It's not just the session. It's the in-between time, which at that time you could analyze, right? Okay, great. Yes. Yes, yes. Was anyone else? Okay, yes, please go ahead.
I got two questions.
Two questions.
חזק, שישמעו.
How did they reach the number like 4 hours? Did they check time? When they meditate, they have a timer?
Okay. 4 hours. This is like Tibetans with numbers, you know. You never really know the four. You know, when I say 84,000 different afflictions, doesn't mean 84,000. It just means a lot. And they say a sixth of a day, a sixth of 24 hours. So so it's kind of like a sixth of a day and a night. With it, it's exactly 4 hours. I guess it's more an estimate, right? So I guess they had ways in terms of with water or with sand.
The light, the sun.
The sun, for instance, in that way they could measure it. So the 4 hours, cannot be taken that literally.
Okay.
But definitely, you know, sun go from here to there. Wow, I've been on the object. Yeah. Okay.
Digesting sufgania.
Sufganya, yeah.
Digestive.
How many sufganya can I eat in 4 hours? Like.
Second one is did you ever heard about someone that reached that level without meditating, like some other
Method?
method?
Unless they've already had it, right? I mean, of course, like from a Buddhist point of view, we lived before. Okay? Very important part of Buddhism. So we lived before. So then people have done that and they have lost that meditation and they come back and they can do it.
Like if someone is practicing Tai Chi or Qigong or some other martial arts, or did you ever heard about the thing that you...
No, I never heard. I don't know how it would work, because how can you, without practicing to focus the mind, how can you achieve, like, without stretching your leg in a certain way, how can you suddenly stretch it if usually we can't do it? See what I'm saying? Like, naturally our mind is distracted. It's naturally distracted. So without applying the antidote to that, how could it, it's a bit like the piece of cloth is wet, it's dry. Without putting it into water, how can it be wet? It would be like that, right? So if through Qigong or Tai Chi, you focus the mind, you're doing exactly that, that's a different matter. You focus, you do this focusing method, you apply the antidotes as just described, by going through awareness of your body, for instance, that could be your object. Sure, that's possible. But thinking of everything else but one object, right, being distracted and doing Qigong or Tai Chi, how could you? Because the mind is still distracted. Your body is doing certain things, great, good for the energy, good for your body, but your mind is just as scattered as usual. So it's like scattered mind is the opposite of focused mind. That's what we need to remove. Dry is the opposite of wet. Without putting it into some liquid, you can't have a wet cloth. But try it out. Don't believe me. It's only guys asking questions. No, that's fine. That's great. No, but where are the women? No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
It's not really a question, but
Yeah.
a thought I had based on his question, and I
Okay.
don't know if that's what you meant,
Yeah.
but to me it sounded a bit like what we call the state of flow, or being in the zone, for
Good.
example, which may arise spontaneously,
Uh-huh.
for example, in running or other forms of sports.
Yes.
To me it sounded like
Yes, yes,
a
yes.
similar type of thing, which again can arise spontaneously without.
Yes,
Yes.
I agree. That is true. However, to keep that for 4 hours at all, right? Like flow, come. Like it doesn't. That's like a calm abiding is such that.
Running a marathon.
Buddy?
4 hours.
Oh, running a marathon. But here, but actually a little bit. Well, first of all, so it's like you could just, if you have calm abiding, like you just want it to be there and it's there. So with a marathon, I think you get so exhausted that your coarse mind can no longer have coarse thoughts, right? It's like, go, just go on, you're almost there. I mean, I sometimes go jogging when I'm in Germany. I'm not good at it, and I know exactly that state. I do like marathon, I do 10 minutes and I'm in that state. Go, you're almost at home, go. So I know what you're talking about. But in my case, it's not concentration, it's a sense of dullness more. Yes, go ahead.
So since I've run a few marathons, I'd like to just add that,
Please.
yes, I talk specifically about spontaneous arising as
Yes.
opposed to the training to be able to mentally focus on demand, which is what
Right.
you're talking about.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
The feeling might be similar,
Yes,
but
yes.
the way to achieve it is totally
Is
different.
different, yes. Yes, please.
Also a guy.
Also,
Where do you place the counting the breath practice? I heard some lamas saying that this is like a practice to the shamatha.
Yeah. It's only in the beginning.
The beginning of the shamatha.
Yeah.
Counting the breath.
Counting the breath, yeah. It's only in the very beginning when you have a really hard time on the first level.
In the first level.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, otherwise you could just be counting the whole time. You don't need to watch the breath. Just count mentally.
But you're counting the breath, not counting just looking at the breath and counting the.
You have two objects. That would be a
exhale.
problem. When you count,
Yes.
when you count and you watch the breath, you're actually switching quickly between the number and the breath. But because we have such a hard time on just holding onto the same thing, at least you have one, you have two, you have three, right? You have a little bit of a color in your whole thing. But or breathing in, breathing out, right? Like just to remind you, mental, like here when you say breathing in, breathing out, also the mind. It's just this mental talk, this internal talk keeps you on the object, but eventually you let go of that.
Yeah.
That should be only a beginning. Yes.
I'm not the guy. I was wondering if there was any, if you have any knowledge about comparison between those stages and the cards.
The what?
The
cards.
10 oxes.
Yes.
The cards?
Of the 10 oxes.
She's talking about the
Yes.
picture of the 10 oxes, but the 10 oxes is from the Zen tradition. The Tibetan, I think, use the elephant with the monkey. But this is similar, but this is not the same. The Tibetan don't like.
I didn't ask if it is I asked if there is, if you have the knowledge, if anybody thought of comparing those things.
That's true. I don't know. Probably someone who is well versed in the Zen tradition, and also
because as an interdiscipline object of.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's should be compared actually. Of course, in the past, Japanese Buddhism was in Japan, Tibetan Buddhism was in Tibet, totally separate, couldn't really get together. Nowadays, it's become so simple. So it'd be interesting at some point. Surely, maybe someone has done so already.
Because when I read the article of Boaz as a preparation for this meeting, I kept on seeing oxen running.
So they use the example. I'm not familiar with this.
No.
Who's using the oxes?
The Zen Buddhism, they use the oxen.
This is the ox. Her the pictures.
You keep pointing in that direction. I'm trying to see.
You know this? You know these pictures of the 10 ox?
No. That's the picture.
לא מכירה את הטקסט.
Okay. I'm not familiar with this. No, I'm sorry, I don't know about it. So this resembles the idea of the 10 oxen.
Yes, because and first of all, they had there are 10 cards, and all the time they showed only 9, because the 10th, and you talked about
9 plus 1.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I look at it.
And about and all the stages of taming the mind.
I think it's
number
supposed to be the
8,
same.
isn't it? אלון. מספר 8,
This is
נכון?
8. This is emptiness. This is when you're achieving emptiness.
Okay.
And
It's nice.
I'm pretty sure it's similar, just
I'll send you the
course.
commentaries.
Yes,
I'll send you
please.
the text in the commentaries. Yes.
please do. I'm pretty sure it's similar, but of course it's like, we want to get to the top of a mountain, there are different roads up there. So maybe just a slightly different technique, different analogy. Yeah, but it'd be interesting to look at it. Maybe you do it.
Or just Google it.
Or just
What is the
the omniscient Google, yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
you're welcome. All right, should we? I don't know. It's
Depend
up
on
to
you.
Oh, I don't mind. I can go on all night, but don't suggest that. No, I'm kidding. But if you have further
יש עוד
questions,
שאלה?
maybe another
שמישהו
question,
שרוצה-
last question.
I'm just curious,
Yes.
cosmetic questions about the end that you put like this in meditation. You said you have to put the right inside the left. There is a reason for it, because for me it's comfortable the other way.
I don't think have to. I don't think have to. I'm left-handed, but I've always done it this way, so it's comfortable now. But I don't think you have to know. It's not like it's right or not. I guess it's just this tradition in India. This is the clean hand. It goes on top. You know, look, this side is.
So this is the reason.
I don't know. Like, you know, this side is covered, it's not covered, this side is covered. That's the tradition. You used to use your hand for anything that was not hygienic, and you use this hand for hygienic stuff, right? Okay, so that was just before toilet paper. But nowadays there's toilet paper, and it's just the tradition. So, also when you think of tantric practices, right? Depending on what tantra, you use your right hand or you use your left hand. So that all disappears. Which, like, also, then you could do this, that, and in the end, I think just do what you feel comfortable. Everything in the end, it's not like, oh, we didn't get shamatha because I got my left hand on. No.
People ask me when I teach, and I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
It's
So
always
maybe,
true
I'm
about
not
it.
sure. I cannot say here. I'm just guessing. But it's always right before, you know, like right side around the temple. So it could just be that tradition that was just maintained for the sake of remembering which hand, so you don't keep changing. I don't know.
Thank you. Can I say some words in Hebrew?
Yes, of course.
שאמטה, את יכולה לתרגם אותי למורה בזמן שאני מדבר בעברית?
No, even if you don't
just want to
translate, I don't
it's just
mind.
simple.
I don't
Okay.
mind. Come on, it doesn't matter. I like to hear Hebrew. It sounds nice.
אז לפני שאני יודע למורה, אני רוצה רק להגיד לכם שחלקכם זה פעם ראשונה שאתם פוגשים מורה או מורה במעמד כזה ומורה בחירה כזאת. בעצם המורה זורעת זרעים, וזו פעם ראשונה שאתם שומעים את הטקסט הזה של תשעת השלבים. שלחתי לכם את הטקסט הזה בעברית עם הערות, טקסט שעבד עליו בועז. אבל זו פעם ראשונה שאתם מקבלים את הזריעה הזאת ממורה כל כך בחירה, ועכשיו זה יהיה לכם מוכר. ויש חשיבות מאוד גדולה שיש העברה ישירה ממאסטרית לתלמידים. זה נורא חשוב לשמוע את זה בלי שום מסך, לא טלוויזיה, לא יוטיוב, ישר. ועכשיו כל פעם שתקראו את הטקסטים זה יהיה לכם קצת יותר מוכר ויותר מובן, אבל זה דבר נפלא להיות חשוף ולהיחשף לטקסט ולידע כל כך גדול, שאני בעצמי לא מיומן להעביר אותו, ובשביל זה ביקשתי מהמורה להעביר את זה. ובאמת זה אולי נשמע קשה ויבש ומורכב, אבל כמוכם אני גם תלמיד, ואם יוצא לי כל שנה ללמוד ממורים כאלו נפלאים, אז באמת זאת זכות. אז נפתח לנו שער מאוד גדול להבין את השאמטה, והנה למדנו שמתחילים לתרגל את הריכוז, ובאמצע הדרך אתה מתחיל להפעיל את האנליטיות, ואז אתה ממשיך ללמוד לתרגל את הריכוז, שזה דברים נפלאים, לדעת ולהבין. אז באמת הייתה לנו זכות מאוד גדולה. Teacher, again, I want to thank you, Genma. You should say Genma, right? For
No.
So I'm
No,
mistaken?
it's not for all words.
No,
You can, yeah,
just-
Gen just works. Yeah.
Gen, okay. So I want to thank you for your visit here and for your teaching.
Sure.
And I think this is precious for you in life, to have you here. And I want to thank you a lot for this teaching and meet you again next year here.
Now I know how to drive. You're almost.
Yeah. And I want to thank you in behalf of all my students. And I hope all this knowledge and wisdom and your true generosity will help us to give some light in others' hearts and to help others, and by teaching them the Dharma. And so thank you and see you again. And
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah to you.
Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you very much. It's lovely as always to be here. But I thought maybe we would do a dedication together, right? Do you want to lead it?
My dedication?
Yeah.
In Hebrew I use.
Yeah, use the
We
Hebrew
have the
one.
Hebrew.
We had a lot of English tonight, so let's do it in Hebrew. I can do it in Hebrew. No.
Next time.
Next time.
אז אנחנו נקדיש את האנרגיה הזאת לכל היצורים חשים באשר הם, שיהיו שמחים ומאושרים, ומקורות האושר והשמחה שלהם יגדלו. מי ייתן וכל היצורים חשים באשר הם, לא ידעו צער וסבל, מקורות הצער והסבל שלהם יפסקו. מי ייתן וכל היצורים חשים באשר הם, ידעו אושר נצחי. מי ייתן וכל היצורים חשים באשר הם, יחוו את הכל בצורה שווה וללא אפליה. אני מוסיף לזה כמובן שאנחנו מקדישים את האנרגיה הנפלאה הזאת לבני הזוג שלנו, להורים שלנו, לילדים שלנו, למורים שלנו, לאחים וחברים שלנו, לכל מי שעוזר לנו לשרת אותנו. תודה רבה.
תודה רבה.
תישארו לשבת, המורה תצא, אתם תלווי אותה לחדר. אתם תישארו לשבת, יעל תלווה את המורה לחדר. We have some 5 minutes, I'll talk to them.
Okay.
She'll take it to them. Thank you very much. כמה דקות במיטוטה רק לסיום הערב. כולם רואים אותי? אני מקווה שנהנתם, וגם אם לא נהנתם, זה לא תמיד פשוט ללמוד לא ריג, מדעי התודעה, יותר מגניב ללמוד פסיכולוגיה בודהיסטית ולא ג'ונג. אני זוכר את השיעורים הראשונים שלי בלא ריג, עם גשי גנגיאצו ועם צ'אמפורים פוצ'ה, יוצא באמצע השיעור בריטריטים וכל הראש שלי הולך להתפוצץ עוד רגע, כי זה לא פשוט, אבל זה באמת זכות. וקלסנג וונגמו, המורה גשם קלסנג וונגמו, הביאה בשורה גדולה של הבנה מערבית והסבר מערבי ורוח אחרת לגמרי בהסברים של הלוריג, מדעי התודעה. אז זה באמת זכות לבוא וללמוד ממנה, אם זה פה ואם זה בריטריטים, מי שהלך ללמוד איתה בריטריטים. יש סרטונים שלה ביוטיוב שהעלינו, כבר מלפני כמה שנים, מריטריטים שלה. זהו, אז זה לגבי הביקור הזה. כמו שאני כתבתי לכם, מי שהיה בקבוצה של התכתובת שלי, המפגש הזה הוא בדנה. דנה זה נדיבות הלב. בשביל... אוי! רגע.